Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's just Joshua. I'm here on my main mystic today. I don't have all the rune stones equipped, but I am going to show you the build that I currently use in basically all aspects of the game. I currently don't have my rune stones equipped because I unequipped all of these to hit 33 yellow on my alt because of how strong it is. And it's too early in the game for me to have multiple sets of rune stones at the moment, but I will be showing you exactly what to look for and what to use in pretty much all situations. In this video, I'm going to be going over almost predominantly rune stones, and I'll make separate guides for other aspects of Mystic. That way I'm able to get the information direct to you and not overwhelm. So to start off, I have a T5 luminous. You can obtain these either through the ruby shop by rolling them, or you can get the free ones from arenas up to 7 a week, and you basically just smash the T1s into the highest bracket until you hit a T5. This is actually proven to be the most cost efficient and highest success rate of increasing the luminous. Even going from T4 to T5, you just put T1s into it singular, one at a time. So let's summon the T5 luminous and my pet. My pet does nothing for this, but I'm going to do it anyways. And let's jump right into it. So for the build, our main focus is going to be the Fate tree, aka Yellow tree, and we are going to go from 3, 6, 12, 21, and 33. This rune energy is going to be the main focus point of our build. And you can see here it increases the rune attribute points of every color by 9. So what this actually does is this makes it so we have 9 points in all of the shown colors above. So we have it in red, orange, 9 extra, or we don't have any extra ones in yellow, but we have them in green, blue, and purple. So what this allows us to do is if we go back to this, it allows us to put one color of each thing into our gear and be able to hit 12 across the board. So you can see here I have minimum 12 points in every single slot when you add the +9 to it. And what I also like to do is I like to hit 21 red and 21 orange, and I'll show you why here in a second. So we'll start off with red. Red, the first one is all damage and healing given by 4%. This one is all physical damage by 6%, and this one is all magic damage by 6%. As a mystic, I run magic damage, and as Slayer, if you are playing the Meta God class, you are also going to run magic damage because all of their hardest hitting abilities are magic damage and not physical. Now for the T2 tree, I run precision, so it increases all critical hit power, by 10%. I might switch to control power for the 5% less energy consumption to get off more abilities. I've been precision the entire game so far though. And then the last one is basic attack speed by 6%. This is huge for slayers and assassins, sometimes gunners, but for most classes you're just going to go critical hit power or energy consumption. Now for 12, these ones actually aren't that great in my opinion. This one is shift evade, changes into attack skill. This one is increases damage by 10% when non-targeting skills deal damage to enemies 7 times. So this is really good if you use a lot of ground abilities, stuff like that. But I personally use Judgment, which is 80 power electric damage to the target by dropping lightning bolts whenever you crit, and that's on a 1-second cooldown. Now, for anybody familiar with power, power does not correlate directly to raw damage. So it's not doing 80 damage, it's doing 80 power. So with my build, that correlates to right around like 250 damage. And then when we get 21 red, it actually increases the damage of the third line, judgment attribute, which is judgment attribute, by 300%. So that puts this up to 240 power, which basically puts that up to almost 700 to 800 damage for me. and they can also crit this, so they can actually be higher than 800. So every 1 second when I'm attacking the target, it's doing another 800 plus damage to that specific target, and it is insanely strong. This is probably my second biggest focus over 33 yellow. Now for orange, we have the T1, which is increases damage of all projectiles by 8%. These ones are good for like slayers and other things. This can also be for a sunlight build if you just want to try to get a one-shot sunlight build. And this is ground strike damage. So we can increase all critical hit rates by 8%, or we can increase the critical hit rate of all projectile skills by 10%. So I do this for my targeted swarm build. Now for the T12, I do continuous damage. This toxic swarm is continuous damage. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about yet, this is what I'm talking about when I make my build. It's altered toxic swarm. It changes into a targeting skill, and it follows the target for 6 seconds while continuously dealing damage. That continuously is the key factor in our build here when looking for continuous damage. It also increases the power of toxic swarm by 50%, so that scales all of our exterior damage as well, like our runestones and everything else. And it changes the targeted swarm or toxic swarm to a projectile skill instead of ground targeted. So that's also what scales all of our projectile attributes. So going back to this though, that's our projectile, and this is our continuous damage. And then 21 orange is also good, not as good as 21 red, but I personally go with infection, which grants 1 stack explosion effect for 5 seconds upon dealing any continuous damage, and deals 195 power as physical damage to the target at 5 stacks on a 5-second cooldown. So once again, that power scales up to about 600. So at 5 stacks it does 600 damage, but it's on a 5-second cooldown, but it still adds about 100 DPS. It's nothing crazy, but in PvP, all of that matters. PvE, this is actually really weak. We have people already pushing over 50k DPS, so adding 100 DPS to that isn't even worth, thinking about. Now, green is actually really good for multiple reasons. It's one of the highest combat HP recoveries, and one of the only ways to get HP combat recovery after they changed the chest piece and they did some changes. However, the combat energy recovery is also insanely strong. 5 combat energy recovery is huge. It allows you to spam abilities more, increases your DPS, increases your utility. So once you get a certain point and your survivability is higher, and your self heals are higher, you're actually going to pull out a seething blood, and you're going to go amplify energy. You also want to go this for PvE. So the second tree for the 6 in green, I personally go stronger together, which increases damage by 5% for 10 seconds when party members within a 24-meter range when applying any effects to allies other than yourself on a 20-second cooldown. So basically you have about half uptime for 5% extra damage essentially anytime you have anytime you have Nature's Protection or your Spirit Bird or a lot of other utility skills. Anytime you use one of those, which is all the time off of cooldown pretty much, you have 10% extra damage as long as you have somebody else around you. Excuse me. And then for the third tree, because like I said, I like to put at least 3 extra and everything, so I get to the third tier. So for green, I like to go Splitting Blood, which heals allies, including yourself, within a 10-meter range when attacking an enemy. And it's on a 5-second cooldown, and it's 50 power. So you basically end up doing about 150 heals every 5 seconds essentially. And it's an AoE. So when you're running a 3s team or you're running dungeons and everybody's running this, it's a lot of extra healing in the group. But for yourself, it's you get passive heals when you're out in open world. You get passive heals in arena. It's just really good. Now for protection, well, in the first tree, number 3, we're actually going to go crit hit resistance. Our other two options are max HP by 5% and decreases all crit hit damage by 10%. I'd rather resist personally, because if you resist, you're taking no damage, not just 10% less. For this one, you can decrease boss damage, you could decrease PvE damage, you could decrease PvP damage, or you could decrease all damage. I personally go PvP damage in most scenarios because PvE is really not going to do much to me. If I'm doing hard PvE content, open world, I do sheet metal just because, you know, it's all around. So I get protection from both, but most of the time I'm running ironclad. And then I also like to do 12, obviously, because there's 3 extra points. And it obtains a barrier that absorbs damage equal to 50 power upon landing a critical hit on a 10-second cooldown, and it lasts 10 seconds. So you can basically have a cushion for anytime you're attacked, and that 50 power is, you know, like 150 shield, which ain't a whole lot, but it is extra protection on top of this green, on top of your passive heals. That all really adds up. Now, decreases damage taken by 5% when a barrier created for yourself is destroyed. I don't really like that one a whole lot. And then creates a barrier equals to 5% max vitality for 5 seconds when hit by an effect that ignores shield defense. It's basically just trash. Also, when you're looking at any of these rune points and you're really unsure what to do, you can look at these numbers down. A lot of people look right past these. You could see PvE and PvP. Now these aren't, you know, they're not going to tell you exactly what build to go and why, like I'm doing in this video. However, it'll give you a general idea on which numbers people pick for what reasons, like in what scenario. So if it's in their PvE build, if it's in their PvP build, it'll tell you the percentages, so you can kind of get an idea and then slightly alter it from there if you're confused. So looking at 21 blue, this is actually pretty good. Recharge, it creates a barrier equal to 50 power for 3 seconds when destroying a barrier. Remnants is decreases damage taken, and then double shield is also trash. So this is the one we also want to go. And then I just realized I skipped over. Sorry, I'm tired. So 12. 12 is obtains a barrier. So upon critting. So that's the one I run. And then these ones are decent. It's rear strike. Absorbs damage from hitting enemies. This is long range, but ultimately, like with people's crit hit, jungle law is always going to be the best. And then this one is anytime you evade or shield defense, same thing. But for most people, like for example, if we look at my crit right now, completely unbuffed, not including projectiles, not including anything else, I'm at 33%, and doing multiple attacks a second, I'm gonna constantly have that up. But yeah, my bad for skipping this. I didn't even realize until right now. It's been a long day. But yeah, I run jungle law and then recharge. And that's for the 3rd line and 4th line. 33 blue is meh. It decreases damage taken for 6 seconds while tenacity or relentlessness effects are active. Resistance shell decreases critical hit damage by 20% while barrier is active. And then diffusion, upon creating a barrier, creates a barrier equal to 75 power for 10 seconds to a max of 5 allies within 12 meters around the first barrier. So this is more of like a healer thing and a party utility thing, but if a bunch of people are running this, you can double barrier your entire group, and it's actually really broken. But it's just bleh. Now 48 blue is what a lot of people really push for. So shielded protection has a 10% chance to conjure a shield that spins around you for 20 seconds, decreasing damage and absorbing damage equal to 150 power. So it's basically like 500 damage roughly. This one is one of the really good ones. If you're hit when only 10% of your HP remains, you will become immortal and gain 30% damage for 5 seconds. So that basically puts you into a stage of saying, you know, like, you didn't finish me off, you fucked up, and now you're gonna die. I will personally be going Shadow Cloak. It passively decreases magic damage taken by 15%, and then when taking magic damage has a 30% chance to remove all harmful effects and grants immunity to magic damage and effects for 3 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. So that can actually make you immune to Slayer's Blades in this meta, which is huge. Then Iron Will. Iron Will is another huge one. Grants immunity to all crowd control effects when using a skill with a cooldown longer than 5 seconds. Decreases incoming damage by 10%. That is a very, very strong one. And then we're going to look at the Awakening Tree real quick. There's a couple options here for you. The ones that I don't suggest for Mystic at least is Honed Skin. It's just kind of irrelevant. And then this one, I would never decrease my skill attribute points this early in the game. Cooldown of all skills by 8% just ain't worth it. Now, so this one, it increases all damage by 4%, but increases all incoming damage by 4%, but increases all damage and healing you do by 8%. Or you have the option to decrease attack speed by 4%, but increases movement speed by 16. Now, these ones in order, it basically allows you to keep the positive effect of these, but removes the negative penalty from them. Now, this one, it basically increases both of these by 1.5 times. This one's just overall better because it doubles the penalties, but also doubles the positives for these. So you get double the damage, so that would be 16% damage, or 32 move speed, which is huge. Now, for the 12th, for 12, the third line, we could look at decreases all damage taken by 15% upon entering combat, which ain't that great. But I typically run either Fleeting Power, increases damage and healing by 15% for 6 seconds upon entering combat status, or Fleeting Passion, which is huge. So I use this in my openers. Decreases energy cost by 100% for 6 seconds upon entering combat status. So as soon as you enter an arena, as soon as somebody ganks you, whatever, all of your abilities are free of cost for 6 seconds. So you can throw out insane bursts that you typically wouldn't be able to do. And then after that 6 seconds is over, you're still full energy and you can keep bursting. So that's personally the one I go for. Now, 21. I personally, like, all these are cool. You can read them if you want, but in my opinion, not a single one of these is worth taking except for Wrath. Wrath, it effect stacks up to 10 times with every hit taken. The Wrath effect explodes at 10 stacks, dealing 300 power as unsplit damage to 7 enemies within an 8-meter radius and applying knockdown. So going back to the whole power thing, that 300 power is going to hit for almost 1,000 damage for up to 7 enemies within 8 meters and knocking them down. And it won't re-register after 15 seconds it'll start again. But that means this can proc up to 3 times a minute. PvE and PvP, knocking down absolutely everybody around you and dealing a pretty healthy chunk of damage. I highly suggest running that one. Now, 33 purple is another one that people really like to go for. And they like to either use decrease stamina consumption by 40%, or decrease the cooldown of shock removal. So that basically they can get out more, but they won't have immunity after it. And then this one's also really good. You get to shock removal twice. This is like the main one in my opinion that people go for. So you get 2 shock removals, however the recharge of it's increased by 50%. So it's more for like arenas and short lifetime, events. But that's basically my current build. That's going to be early game. Now, real quick, if you guys care at all, I will go over some of the higher ones in the trees. If you just kind of wanted to see current build, that's currently what I'm running. I'll go over it one more time. So I'm running 3, 1, 3, 1. That's shred tree. 3, 1, 3, 1. Orange, I am running 1, 4, 3, 3. And so in orange, I'm running 1, 4, 3, 3. In the yellow tree, I am running 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. That's my tree and fate. It's 1 1 2 2 2. Green is 1 or 2, whichever if you need HP or combat recovery. 1 and 1. Protection, I personally run 3 3 1. And then awakening, I personally run 1 3 3. And so that's that. If that's all you guys wanted to see, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. I'm going to be doing gearing videos, build videos, skill build videos, how to gear, what to gear for, stuff like that. And I appreciate you tuning in. For those of you who want to stick around and watch a future build, or other things to look for, I'm going to be going over the 33s and the 48s real quick and all the colors to conclude the video. So in Assault, we get Finishing Smite. Finishing Smite certain classes have, but you'll know if it makes sense to you. For me, I personally don't want it. The lower the target's health, the higher power of all projectiles increases up to 1.2 times. So this would be really, really good for me on my Swarm build, but not worth going 33 red at the moment. Increases all damage taken by enemies by 10% when you hit them with 2 crowd control effects within 3 seconds. This would be really good for arenas. Now 48 increases the power of all skills by 15%, or by 15. The higher the attack speed and frequency of the attacks, the more beneficial this effect becomes. Then we have a Smite, increases the damage and healing of the first hit by 20% every 1 second. This is actually pretty strong. And then we have Activate, sweeping through around you every 3 seconds upon entering combat status, dealing 100 power as physical damage to a max of 5 enemies within a 4-meter range without splitting damage. Has a 100% chance to remove a barrier when sweeping through hits. So basically this is insane for anybody getting trained, or any melees that are going to be training people. This is going to remove all the barriers. This is going to eat right through them and do 300 damage every 3 seconds essentially. It's strong. Is it worth going to 48 red? Maybe late game. Right now, no. 21, we kind of went over these. I go continuous. These are better for different classes. Now, weakness exposure increases incoming damage to all crowd control targets by 15% for 2 seconds. So basically, anytime you CC, they're going to take 15% more damage. That's pretty big. Deals 40 powers continuous nature damage to all crowd controlled targets every second for 10 seconds. Now, this is really strong. Anytime you CC, you're basically going to do 120 power, or 120 damage as continuous damage every second for 10 seconds. So you're going to do about 1200 damage, and this can actually proc things like Judgment. So like if you're not able to connect with the target and this is on them, you're still going to be proccing all that. This alone can cause a kill. It's huge. I will probably go this after 21 red, to be honest, because I'll already be 21 in this. So I'll probably pop down the 33 orange if I can. Increases the skill cooldown of all crowd control targets by 50% for 2 seconds. So basically, you mess with their abilities. It's not that great. I would go this all day. Fires blood red projectile that tracks up to 5 enemies within a 15-meter range using a non-targeting skill. The blood red blade deals 60 powers physical damage to the hit target. So basically, you can hit multiple targets with extra damage. I don't see it as that great. Grants natural continuous damage effect to 50 power every 2 seconds when a ground strike hits a target, and you can stack that multiple times. So if you stack this, you basically do a 200 power every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Now, remember what we said about the power? So that's essentially 600 damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds when you have full stacks on somebody. Launches electric spears to the ground after hitting an enemy with a finishing smite skill. For anybody that has finishing smite, this is decent. And then we have control, increases the ground targeting damage by 10% and implies fear for 3 seconds when the skill succeeds 5 times. The effect is removed upon taking damage equal to 10% or max HP or more. So I would only go this if you are running a ground strike build for something like Slayers or Warlords, and you could apply this. This will change the game like completely. This is probably the strongest rune in the game in my opinion. 48 isn't just worth, like, it's not worth it. These are all just RNG rolls. You don't want any kind of RNG in anything. Now, 30% of all healing you use in green, which only heals allies, will also heal you. Removes one harmful effect from the target when using healing skills. They heal both you and your allies. It's basically a cleanse. Switch position increases your critical hit rate by 2% when applying any effects to allies other than yourself. This can be good for mystics, especially because your AoE heals, your birds, everything like that. You can basically give yourself 20% extra crit hit rate for at all times, as long as you keep your stacks up. Now, physical enhancement increases attack speed by 30% for yourself and ally party for 20 seconds at the start of battle. Recovers 100 energy for yourself and ally parties every 5 seconds for 20 seconds at the start of battle. Detects hidden enemies within 30 meters range for yourself. So this is basically to get assassins out. This is huge. This is mental enhancements, also really big. And then creates a barrier equal to 75 power for yourself and ally parties for 24 meters within a 24 meter range for 20 seconds at the start of battle. I would personally run mental enhancement or the assassin one, but mental enhancement's huge. And then support summons a pixie for 12 seconds when inflicted with a crowd control effect. It will follow its summoner to cleanse harmful effects and grant 50 power of HP recovery every 3 seconds. Your mana awakening pet related attributes won't activate. Has a 10% chance of activating melody upon energy skill use. It recovers 25 energy every 5 seconds to allies within a 15 meter range for 10 seconds, and has a 10% chance of activating a bubble effect for 10 seconds to grant invincibility to a single hit. This is going to be huge. So for healers, I would run cleanse, mental enhancement, and melody. And then for this one, we already said that we would run recharge, diffusion, and then iron will. And then for this one, we talked about going here, but so 48 in awakening changes the ultimate attack into a skill that consumes energy instead of numen. However, using this imprint requires you to learn ultimate attacks by activating the mana. So I really don't think it's that good. It's a lot of people apparently use it for PvP. So I guess it would be better in arena, so you could use your awakening, or you could use your ultimate without, having to build up that lumen. But that's, I don't know. I haven't used it enough to be able to tell you. Increases damage dealt by all skills by 15% in exchange for increasing energy consumption by all skills. So this is amplified. This is just like taking your keynote. And then increases vitality by ×2, but also increases incoming damage by 50%. I wouldn't take this either. I probably would do amplify personally, but that's gonna basically conclude the Runestone video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, make sure to leave it down in the comments, and stay tuned for further Mystic guides. Thank you guys. Take care.